everyone, Tess Thomas here from Clay County Historical and Arts Council. Welcome back to another episode of One-on-One with Clay County History. Today we're in downtown, pretty much, Hayesville, North Carolina, just off the square, with Mr. Billy England. Billy, thank you for having us today.
You're sure welcome.
Thanks.
I hope we can have something to share that will be interesting.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. We usually just jump right into where your family came to Clay County. When did your family first come here?
We came here in 1964, and I started first grade over here in Hayesville. My father got a P.W. England, got the job as extension director with the Clay County Extension Service.
Right.
And that's when we moved here. We moved in the old Ritter Lumber Company clubhouse up here when we first moved here.
Really?
And that was a great old big house. I had three siblings. There's four of us. My mother was Edith Irewood England, and we moved here from Madison County, North Carolina.
Where's that?
It's in a little town there in Madison. It's called Marshall. It's right on the French Broad River there in Madison County, and Daddy was an extension agent there, and then he got the opportunity to be in the director here in Clay County, so he moved to Clay County.
And that was first grade, you said?
Yeah, I started in first grade here. My siblings, Nancy, was my sister. She was a little older than me, and then I had Steve and Maurice. I was the youngest of the four. And
the baby of the family.
Yeah, they was in school over in Marshall, but when we moved here, I started school over in Hayes.
Oh, right.
First grade had Miss Moses.
Miss Moses. And since we're on the subject of first grade, anybody in particular you may have met in first grade?
Well, just so happened, I didn't have an idea this would take place, but my wife, Benita, they came here in '64 also from Montana.
Wow. And
we started in the first grade over together. She was in Miss Gray's class, I believe. Her twin sister, Anita, was in Miss Moses' class.
Isn't that ironic? Wow. That's amazing. So you're one of four, and you're the youngest, and so you're all going to school here locally. What did y'all do after school? Did you guys have a farm or stuff that you had to help tend, or what did y'all do for after school?
Well, it took a little while to get organized, just moving here, but a little later on, Dad bought this property we're on here from Mr. Ray Stanley. It's part of the Ritter Lumber Company, and he started building the house, built a home there in I think he completed it in '66, and that was a good experience. And then we had a little bit of land, and Dad went to got up with Harley Hicks somehow or another, and said, "Will you travel back home and get my cow? We had milk cow."
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, Harley said, "Oh," said, "I'll just soon sell you an old cow is to drive that far."
Right.
So Daddy bought a cow off of Harley Hicks, a milk cow, and he sold the cow he had out in Madison County.
Right.
And we milked the cow I was milking the cow when I was in high school.
Wow, your whole life cow milking.
So we kept the milk cow, but I really Dad farmed some on the side while he worked as a county agent. We grew tobacco up at Jack Groves and over at we had some tobacco over at Mr. J. Moore at that time. And we'd grow them little patches of tobacco just on the side, and that's kind of how we got started in agriculture, I guess I did.
Right.
And let's see, it's hard to tell a lifetime just in a minute or two.
I know. That's why I say we take our time. We're just going to shoot the breeze. It was a beautiful day. I think it's 71 degrees. It's a gorgeous day in Hayesville.
Wonderful.
For being March, yeah. So, any kind of stories you remember telling about your siblings growing up? You got any funny anecdotes or?
Well, I'm sure we had all kinds of stuff go on, but one little deal I remember about when we were sitting around the supper table one night, Daddy asked Mom, said, "Edith, run and get the almanac." And Mom said, what in the world we need with the almanac and sitting around the table eating supper? And Daddy said, well, I want to look in it and see if we can tell when Bill is going to full.
When Bill's going to be full? Oh, God. Were you like a little hungry? Growing boy, right?
I think it's trying to tell me I eat too much.
Darn it. Oh, that's great. So you went to high school here also? You graduated from Hayesville?
Yeah, we went through elementary school and here and also in high school. And I played football from, I think, 3rd grade on through 12th grade. We played football and was in sports.
Wow. Was there any championships you guys won in Hayesville?
I don't think we ever won any championships, but I was in the FFA, I remember, one time, and we had some teams, 2 judging teams, and we went to the district meetings there a time or 2, and one year we came back and we said, well, we beat AC Reynolds and 9 other teams that didn't have to show up. We beat them.
Beat all of them. Didn't happen to show up.
But that was a good experience at FFA.
Yeah. I think I did FFA for 1 year.
Ed Roach was the teacher then. He was good to work with.
I just spoke with him recently. Seems like a wonderful fella. We're going to try and get he on a one-on-one, but we're going to have to put him to next winter. So.
Well, we grew some crops over there when we was in the school, and somehow or another I got tangled up in the Clay Soil and Water Conservation District. Would get several junior members, they called them, and I got to be one of those, and they went to their meetings and got to experience with the Clay Soil and Water Conservation District, what they did.
That's interesting.
And that was a good experience.
Yeah.
Harley Hicks, the fella that brought the cow, he was one of them.
Wow, at what age?
I would have been in high school, probably the 10th grade.
That's a great experience, wow.
And that sort of helped me get introduced to agriculture a little bit.
Yeah.
And we had, like I say, we grew tobacco and we grew some other crops, our tomatoes, and that on the school deal. And that was a good experience.
So are all of your siblings still local?
Well, I've had 2 brothers that's passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my sister lives over here on Riverside Drive in Hayesville.
Okay.
Nancy.
That's good, y'all are close.
Yeah.
And your parents?
My mom, she passed away in 2004. And then Dad in 19. He was 96 years old.
Wow. What an amazing long life. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so let's jump from kindergarten with Benita to, did y'all court all the way through school, or was it on again, off again thing?
Now, we didn't ever court until college years, I guess, wasn't it? When you was in college. We knew one another, but we didn't get really to court until after I got through high school.
Wow.
She was in college. I wanted to get me an educated woman.
Right? Good for you. That's a smart man.
But that's been a wonderful experience, and it's lasted a pretty good while.
Well, right? She's still putting up with you today.
Yeah, we've been married 44 years, I believe. In April 5th, it'll be 44 years.
Soon. Wow. Congratulations.
And we was blessed with 2 boys, Jared, and who's in the Coast Guard in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, right now.
I appreciate his service.
And then we got Brett. Brett came along in '83. He was 87, excuse me. Jared 83 and Brett 87. And Brett had been in Wilmington. But he just, this last year, he transferred from Duke Power from Wilmington to Macon County this year.
Oh, it's a lot closer.
And they've moved to,
Nice.
They've got a home up in on 175 there in Hayes.
Yeah.
And,
So that's nice and close. Good.
but that's been really a blessing that they've come to live with us or close to us. You
Yeah.
get to spend time with them.
Yeah, because that's, my daughter's in Wilmington, and that's a long way, all three of my grandsons. So that's hard to be, it's, 8.5 hours at least driving
Right.
to go see each other.
Jared, our oldest son that's in Elizabeth City, has 2 children. That's Edith, is 11, and Jackson is will have his 13th birthday here in just a few days.
I have a Jackson, is it going to be 15?
Okay.
That's ironic.
But we love to seeing them when we can, but we don't see them often.
Yeah.
We try to stay in communication with them regularly.
Well, it's lucky now that they have technology like they did. Back in the day, we couldn't, barely use the telephone to call our friends,
Right.
Get off that phone. Party line.
When I got out of high school, I was encouraged to go to college, but I didn't happen to go. I thought, well, I'd try farming, because I had a farming background. My granddaddy was an inspiration to me on the farm. He had a little farm out in Buncombe County, about 80 acres, and he was.
That's not quite so little.
Well, it was a lot of it was woodland and rolling,
Okay.
but he made the most of it. But now he farmed with horses and mules. He didn't farm with tractor.
Yeah.
When he got older, he had a neighbor there that was mighty good about helping him do tractor work. He had a good tractor.
Nice.
Willard Campbell was a good man, and but that's some of my most memorable memories, I guess I'd say. I'd get to go out to my grandparents, spend a week in the summer,
Right.
run around with them out there.
Yeah, definitely making memories.
They were kind of people that had the saying, eat what you raise and raise what you eat. They were pretty well self-sufficient. I mean,
Right.
they had berries and apples and grapes and gardens and preserved their food, and what they'd grow, they'd preserve it and try to get through the winter with it.
Right.
And they were always had the hog. We'd always have pork. They'd preserve that meat. They'd cure it, or else Granny would can some of it. That was about the time later on there, the freezer came out and they froze some. But they lived there in Weaverville, up Flat Creek, where that area where they lived. And that was, my granddaddy was an inspiration to me a whole lot.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Pet, his nickname was Pet England. I got to farming there out of high school, and I'd sort of like to mention some of the fellas that helped me.
Absolutely, please do.
I'm sure I'll leave some of them out, but David Owens was a boy that helped us a lot, and Bill Norton, cool dude.
Cool dude.
He's a boy that helped me out a whole lot. He's a good little neighbor.
That's awesome.
And we grew pepper over here just not far from the house. Pepper patch too around, and he'd help us set it out and pick it and what have you. And Rex Davis is another good buddy of mine. He'd help us when he'd get the chance. So tobacco was my main crop. We grew early tobacco. I grew about 31 crops of early tobacco.
Wow.
And that was good to us. Tobacco was. It's got a bad name, but it was good to us.
Right.
And our growing up and raising a family and what have you.
Well, nowadays I think it's probably more the additives that they put in the tobacco than the tobacco itself, although I'm sure tobacco is bad enough, but now it's way, way worse. So.
But tobacco was good to us, and we had a lot of good experiences with it. I had, about 76 is when I started growing tobacco. And I grew some all over the county when I first started growing. And that was back then we rented allotment from people. And that was good to get to know all the people we'd rent allotment from, or poundage. And that was a lot of good experiences dealing with those people all over the county.
Can you explain that to me?
When tobacco when they had the first tobacco program, it was they'd measure the land that you grew it on. You had so much of an allotment, But when I started growing, they converted it to poundage. And each of these, back when I'm talking about back in the 70s, there was a lot of different farms around here that had small tobacco allotments on them.
Okay.
And a lot of them had aged out, and they'd rent their poundage to somebody that's trying to grow.
Okay.
So I rented poundage all over the county from folks,
I see.
and that was a good way of doing it.
You would just raise it on their property.
Well, you could move it to other property.
Oh.
You didn't have to stay on their property, but now there's several people we'd grow on that had the land and had the barns to hang it and cure it in, and we'd use their facilities when that worked out. In '79, we built a big tobacco barn up here behind the house, and Joe Buckner and Tom and his crew helped us build the barn. It was 96 feet long and about 36 foot wide,
Oh, wow.
and about 25 feet high.
Sweet.
And another old boy that he worked for Joe and Tom then was Bud Mease. And I'm still buddies with Bud. Bud would help us cut and hang tobacco. And Bud was a good neighbor. Still a good neighbor. And Joe and Tom, them boys would get up on top of those plates and walk them. And them up there that high in there, I was sitting there, I was hugging them poles, what I was doing.
You were a little less freely walking,
But that helped us. And I told you could cure about 4 acres of tobacco in that barn.
Wow.
And we used that several years.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 acres?
Yeah. And I'd grow some.
I can't even imagine what that looked like.
I grew crops back here behind the house, and then I'd grow some in Warren, and we even rented Plato Salt's outfit one several years, and we'd grow on his farm and hang it in his barn. And that was a good experience. Plato was a mighty good neighbor. Yeah. Let's see here. We grew some tomatoes from time to time, and then pepper was a little crop we'd grow.
Bell pepper?
Bell peppers. We contracted it with a man called Fred Weaver over in Union County. He worked with Campbell Soup Company.
Really?
And we'd pick that pepper. They'd help us get the plants and grow it. And we'd pick that pepper. And at that time, we threw it in the back of a pickup. And they had a thing over there where it raised the front of the pickup up, dumped it out. Most of the time, we'd wait till it got red to grow it, but sometimes they'd want some chocolate pepper, partly green and partly red. And some years we'd grow several tons of pepper.
Partly green and partly red was called chocolate pepper?
Yeah.
Never heard that term.
That's what they called it.
That's
There
great.
were some good folks to deal with over there with that pepper situation. We'd grow some, they'd let us pick some green, for the market. And I can remember picking the load and taking it out there to Asheville at the farmer's market, and I went out and got my granddaddy to go with me. And he was a fellow that was used to staying around home, and he got sort of anxious to get out of there. And them old boys there knew we was wanting to go home, and they come over and made us offer on the pepper. And Granddad said, "Go get your baskets and bring them back over here, and we'll load this stuff."
He was ready to sell it.
He's ready to get out of there.
Well,
we had a
so
great
they got
time.
a good price that day.
Yeah. We had a good time. It was a good experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I hadn't got to talk about pine log. In 1980, we got an opportunity to rent a farm down on Pine Log. We rented the Penland Farm, they called it.
Really?
And we moved down there and got started farming down there, and that was a great experience. I can't tell this without sobbing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But they was some good folks we got acquainted with down there in that community. And
oh, I'm sorry.
learned to love them. And we had a little church there. And it was just a great little community that had a lot of good neighbors. And
Oh.
it was just,
It's not like that these days, is it?
well, I got to thinking about that, and we take it for granted too. We don't even realize we've got that until it slips away from us.
Yeah. Yeah, how very true.
But there was a lot of good folks down there we miss.
Tell about the the tomato patch and having the boxes sitting at the end.
We had
This his wife Benita off camera, y'all.
we had some neighbors down there, the Andersons. Talk about good old country salt of the earth folks. They lived off the land. But I remember Boyd, I'd plow and get the land fixed down there, and I'd get up with Boyd, and he'd say, "You got her in apple pie shape, don't you?"
Apple pie shape.
Said, "You got that land in apple pie shape."
Nah.
And some of their daughters that married a boy from Blue Ridge, or Old Fort Blue Ridge, and I'm telling you what, this country. But every once in a while they'd come through in an old truck or something, and when we was gathering pepper and tomatoes, and they'd come through and get them some pepper and tomatoes. And we just had a big time of visiting with them folks. That was a wonderful experience. It was a lot of fun.
Sounds like you met a lot of folks.
Yeah, and there's Bobby and Mark Owens was some boys that helped me a lot down there in Pine Log. And old Herman Moose. Henry Shaw was a very good little neighbor there that helped me a lot. Still helps me. He's a good hand to fix stuff, mechanic.
Yeah.
And Henry was a good little, intelligent, talented little fella. Well, he's not no little fella. I guess he's 6 foot tall now.
As they do grow.
But when we first got acquainted with him, he was just a little fella. Keith and Katie Miller was wonderful neighbors.
Aw.
Miss Anna Pennon and Minnie and Arnold, and just a lot of wonderful folks down there in Pine Log. I'm afraid I can't mention them all. I'll miss some of them, but they was
Mama. They all got it dear to your heart.
Mama Dot and Daddy Arthur. They was in their 80s, and they'd drive through and see us down there picking pepper, and they'd get out and help us.
Aww.
And them that age.
Wow.
David Hite was a good neighbor and our mailman down there at Pine Log. Had a lot of good experiences with him. And them Owenses, Arnold and Dillard and Joe, and they was just a bunch of them Owenses. We got a real blessing out of being with them and having them for neighbors. Like I say, you don't realize that, what you've experienced till it gets away from you. So, I mean, my advice would be to cherish your family and your folks around you, neighbors.
Amen.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting all teared up. It's all good.
It happens all the time.
The most part was good experiences, and it's just a blessing. And it was an opportunity farming was a way of life is independent, and that was a blessing that you was able to try to make a living with that fashion. One tricky thing about the farming was you didn't get a payday till the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that was a trick. First few years of trying to get through that spell to get to that payday.
Yeah, to make the money
stretch
all the way till you get back around full circle. Wow.
We was blessed. Benita taught school over here for 30-some years.
Where at?
In Hayesville.
At the elementary or middle or?
She was middle school mostly.
Middle school?
She worked some other different things along the way. And I worked some public jobs too that I'm tickled I got to do. I worked with, I guess my first little experience was I worked with Tri-County Implement Company over here with Pat Miller at an equipment dealer. We worked there a few months. And another little thing I guess I could mention is we'd take off and go to Benita's folks was Montana. And we'd take off in the summer sometimes and go out there and spend a month. Them was some good times.
That's a great travel. Wow. Yeah. That's a trip.
Yeah. Some of the Jerry, I don't know if did Brett get to go with us on one of those trips? I believe he did. But I can remember in the 80s, early 80s, we got in a we got in another little two-door Malibu car. Me and Benita and Jared. Jared was 2 years old, wasn't he? And Benita's mother and daddy, all 5 of us,
Oh,
got in
goodness.
that little car and went to Montana.
Wow.
Spent a month.
Wow, with the 2-year-old. That's a trip.
Huh?
We put 7,000 miles on it.
Put 7,000 miles on that little old car.
Wow.
I was down in my back when we left.
Dang.
We had a good time. We had a great time. And it was good to get acquainted with Benita's, some of Benita's family.
Right? Yeah.
In that
Absolutely.
time. But then the crop soil would suffer when we'd get out and loaf like that. But we'd get back and try to piece it back together and keep it going. There was a lot of good help. Let's see, a fella I hadn't mentioned that was a mighty good hand to help me was Bruce Fleming. Him and old Bruce was oh yeah, this lady that lived right here in this little house, Martha Nelson. She was a good neighbor, and she'd help us pull off tobacco. And her and Mother would get to talking, and I'm telling you what, the tales they'd tell up in them old barns when we was grading that tobacco off, getting it ready to go to market.
Oh, yeah?
It was something else. We had a Jeannie Penland. She helped us some. Her boys, Derek and Curry, would help us in the fields. I remember Derek Curry helping us pick tomatoes, and then they'd help us in the back. And that was good folks. And their old, like Cecil was their daddy's name, and his nickname was Duck. Duck Penland. He's a fine man. And his brother Johnny and Betty was good neighbors there with us down that pine log. I'm getting this all jumbled up.
The timeline doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if anybody of the families that you're mentioning right now end up seeing this, they're going to be like, hey, I remember that. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't have to be in chronological order.
Another good little neighbor down there was old Moody McElrath. That was Mary Reese's dad and Vicky Donaldson's dad. He was a good little neighbor there, and he'd want to go fishing, and every once in a while I'd take off and we'd go fishing. That was something I wouldn't take nothing for.
Right. That's awesome. Good memories.
Yeah. But tobacco, like I say, I get back to tobacco. I've got some stuff over there on the wall where I got awards for growing tobacco through the extension service, I guess that was. And like I say, tobacco was good to me and good to her family. And good experience. Let's see, I talked about working at Tri-County Implement. I also worked about 18 months with Miller Well Drilling, doing digging, and they called me the big digger when I was on working
The
with
big
them.
digger.
I'd take
How deep do you do a typical well, like for just a home?
well,
How
them,
deep would it go?
they would get into the, I don't know why anybody would well drill, because you talk about a challenging profession. When you set that drill up, you don't know if you're going to go 100 feet or, I think they talked about drilling wells that go 1,000 feet deep.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
It was, a lot of times those deeper wells wasn't as successful as the shallow ones. But that's a challenging career, that well drilling is. I've got respect for anybody that do that.
I'll bet.
Because you don't know what you're going to get into. It's just like they said in that movie, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to
Forrest
get.
Gump. I love me some Forrest. That's one of our favorite movies. Yes, you don't know what you're going to get.
You don't know what you're going to get.
You never know.
Let's see. I kept, while I was in Pine Log, from 80 on, we kept about 20, 25 cows also. And we'd raise calves with them and put up hay to feed them and that type of thing. That's something I hadn't mentioned anything about. That was a good experience, having the cattle. And that was when we first went down to that farm at Penland Farm down there at Pine Log, it had been cropped. So we lit in and sowed it in grass, the majority of it, down at the lower part on the creek there we'd farm. but we sold that upper land in grass, and we got it built up pretty good there where it was, productive. Growed a lot of grass.
Huh.
Fed them cows.
That's good thinking.
Let's see.
The bale and hay running over Brett.
Back when we square baled hay for a lot of years, but we finally smarted up a little bit, maybe you want to call it. Got a round roller, hay roller. That took quite a bit of labor out of it.
Right.
But I remember, this is a memory. One time we was feeding the roll of that hay, and I had Jared and Brett with me. And Brett wasn't that old, was he? But he was just a little fella, in other words. And there's a lot of sidling ground down there at Pine Log. We was rolling that hay. We'd roll that hay off of those sidling places for it to roll out for the cattle to get to it. And we started to roll out, and it was not unrolling like it should. In other words, we needed to turn it around so it'd unroll.
Okay.
Well, Brett was just, like I say, a little old boy. I don't believe he's much bigger than Ray is now, was he? But anyway, I said, stop that roll, boys, if you can. Brett, being just a little old, energetic, aggressive boy, he run out there up to it and grabbed it. And it just rolled right over him. Took him and just rolled right over him.
Oh, no.
And me and Jerry was seeing it, and we got tickled. And he was crying when it first run over him, but he saw us cutting up about it and laughing, and he got to laughing.
Right, and so it is kind of funny.
It didn't happen to hurt him, but that was just a silly.
He probably did it again after that on purpose, just because it was fun to roll down the hill.
But it could have hurt him, because those bales weighed about 500 pounds.
Oh, good gracious, I didn't realize that. Oh my gosh.
He's lucky it didn't hurt him.
Right?
But they's tough. They'd run and go and climb, and they're in pretty good physical shape and condition, which that helps out about getting hurt.
Right. This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing all this history.
And I'd like to say that it's a blessing to get up with all those folks and be able to make a living on the farm and have all that help and support out of folks.
Yeah, it takes a community. It takes a village.
Yeah, and Benita, she was a good hand to help me as long as I wasn't fussing at her.
Who wants to help if you're getting fussed at?
My dad, he retired from the county agent probably in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, and he helped out a lot on the farm. My mother was a big help. She'd cook and fix lunches for us, and Benita would too when she was able, and we just had a good time. We tried to make it interesting and fun all we could, and it was most time it's a pleasure to get to do most of this stuff. I also worked I spent several years working with the Soil and Water Conservation District as an ag cost share technician. I worked one spell of 6 years, and I farmed along with that too, farmed on the side.
Wow.
And then I got to work on what I call the dude ranch up here on the Hiwassee River, right below the dam. I worked up there for 6 years.
The Dude Ranch?
Well, that's just what I call it.
Oh.
Riverbend Ranch was the name of the place.
Okay.
A man named Jerry Ikoff owned it, and I worked up there on that place full time. Of course, I'd farm on the side.
What?
Just maintaining the place. There's about 100 acres of the place, but a lot of it, the Cheeks boys farmed it. But there's a lot of work to keep it up along the river, and then he had 2 homes on the place. We tried to keep them, in order. Had a pond and a lot of fencing, a lot of board fencing there is a job of keeping that up and keeping it trimmed around it. And we'd I'd mow and mow and mow. There's a lot of mowing.
A lot of mowing. And
then there's outbuildings to keep up and look after. And but that was interesting to get to do that. Beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful farm. And let's see, I worked with the Soil and Water Conservation again for 3 years after that. So I worked worked several years in amongst my farming. Let's see.
What do you
here.
do nowadays?
I tell you what, somebody asked me the other day what I was doing, and they said, "What are you doing? Nothing?" And I said, "Yeah, and I'm getting daggone good at it."
Professional.
I do a lot of nothing. I'm a collector of various things. Some people call junk.
Some people call it junk.
And I can't wait to get a chance to keep my little grandson Ray. Of course, I think the world of little Alex too, but she's in school. She's first grader over here in school, so I hadn't got to
She's a big girl now.
spend much time with her. But little Ray, I get to keep him every once in a while, and that's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Something I didn't mention about down there at Pine Log, we was involved in the church, and that was a great little church.
Was it called Pine Log Church?
Pine Log Church.
Okay.
And that's, I wouldn't take nothing for that experience with those folks through the years. That's wonderful. And I can't name all them people, but there's a lot of good folks involved in that. Not a lot of good neighbors down there at Pine Log. Just like I say, you don't realize what you got till it slips away. That community, knowing everybody in the community, and that's just something to be thankful for.
Yeah. Well, did you know Pam and Ricky Miller?
Oh yes.
So I just did an interview with Pam, and she was telling me about Ricky's gunshot accident
Yeah,
and how that was,
tragic.
but it was the recipe for faith, because she kept saying he was coming home for Christmas, and the more they told her no, and she kept saying yes, and they literally took Granny's hatchet and chopped down the tree, and he was coming home. And her granny just said, all you can do is pray, so she kept praying, and God made sure he was home that year for Christmas.
Right.
So
Well, he had a terrible time with
it
that.
was so moving, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's Pine Log also, right?
Yes.
So it's,
No
yeah,
doubt.
so I've heard all good good stories about Pine Log.
Yeah, all them, that Miller bunch, Ralph and Keith and Katie and Will Pat and Ben and Jean and Evelyn. And, let's see, I'm leaving somebody out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. Pete was a wonderful neighbor. Yeah. Some of them I didn't know that lived off like in Texas. But they was a good family, and that their mother was Daddy Arthur, Reese's sister. And she raised them young'uns just about on her own. I think they lived up in Ohio some, and then somehow or another they got back to Pine Log. And that was amazing. She was an amazing lady. Yes. Yeah. No doubt. Good family.
The
Tell
older
about
we get,
Fireball.
Something they do down there at Pine Log every
New Year's Eve or somewhere.
New Year, during New Year's most of the time, we did have, I mean, this started back, no telling how far back, but they do what they call fireballing. And they do it on the place we had leased there. That's Ruth Penland was one we leased from. She is a dandy lady, no doubt. And her son Chris. But they'd these most of the time it's ladies, but I think Pete sold about as many as a lot of them. But they'd sew this. They'd get a tennis ball to start it with, and they'd sew cotton cloth around that tennis ball, and they'd sew it. And they'd keep sewing that to make a pretty big ball, about as big as a softball, maybe a little bigger. And about a week or two before that event, they'd soak them in kerosene. They put those things in kerosene
You're
oil.
kidding.
And they'd carry them up there. It was out in the pasture usually when they had it there along the road. They'd get them things out one by one. They had a fire. They'd build a fire. And they'd roll those balls over into that fire. And they'd get blazing. They'd take a stick or something, rake them out, and you'd pick them up and throw them. They'd usually build two fires.
Pick them up.
And they'd grab them balls of fire and throw them over to the bunch over there.
Pick them up with what? Your bare hand?
Well, most of the time, you ought to wear gloves.
Well, you ought to. What?
But everybody, when you talk about that, everybody thinks you're crazy. But we do that every
That was the fun thing to
years.
do. So
But that
you
was
just
a
pick it
tradition.
up and throw it down the pasture, and it would roll down the hill.
Well, like I
and
say,
then
you'd
what?
build 2 fires, and then you'd have a group over here and a group here, and you'd throw the balls over here, and they'd throw them back.
Okay, fireball. I'll be danged.
Fireballing.
Fireballing. Wow,
just an
not
old-
for the faint of heart.
It was just that one. You don't put on no hairspray during this event.
Probably not.
Joyce is one of the Miller girls that I didn't mention a while ago. Joyce came to the event one year, and she had her hair all dolled up really nice and hairsprayed. Her hair went poof.
You're kidding.
I think she
That's
had.
scary.
I think she had some burns behind
my
behind
gosh.
her ears and what have you.
Oh my God.
But it was pretty crazy, but it was something that was done.
I
don't
imagine
know if
that's
we're
probably
still,
when it stopped happening much, when somebody got hurt.
I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but it hadn't been long, I know, since they're doing some of them. Were.
Really? Wow.
But they'd throw them things back and forth until most of the time we'd have it there. Dinah had a home there, and they'd fix all kinds of goodies and have in the basement. So it was a kind of a party and a good time, fellowship, and what have you. And we'd throw them fireballs. There wasn't very many casualties.
Not very many.
But it was like I say, it's so amazing that you'd even do something like that. That's what's entertaining, I guess, about it. It is.
Yeah. Whoops. I thought I kicked you.
But that was something that was pretty amusing, pretty fun.
That's pretty unique. I've never heard of it before, so it has to be something local to Pine Log.
Yeah. And then we moved back up here. Somehow or another, we got an opportunity to buy this little place back in, I think we bought it in 13, but did move back up here to 16. We built a home down there at Pine Log in 95. And lived there till 16, I think, when we sold that home and moved up here. Back to Hayesville, back to town.
How you like being in town?
I like it pretty good. It spoils you about how handy everything is.
Right.
Versus being, well, it was about 12, 13 miles from Hayesville down there to Pine Log. So we made the trek every day. One reason we thought that'd be a neat place is because Murphy and Blairsville is about the same distance as Hayesville.
Okay.
And we thought if we got an opportunity to have jobs in Murphy or Blairsville or Hayesville, we'd be about the same.
Centrally located. That's a great idea.
But most all our jobs brought us up back to Hayesville.
Did it? Yeah.
But I do a lot of trading over in Union County sometimes at the farmers co-op and what have you. So it was, and then we'd go to Murphy too. So it was kind of handy. A lot of people think Pine Log's from another part of the world, but at times it was handy to be on Pine Log.
How big is Pine Log?
How big is Pine Log? I don't know.
I mean, is it a blink and you'll miss it, or is it,
There are no stores, no businesses.
The church, I guess, is the
Community.
landmark.
Just a
Pine Log Baptist Church, I guess, would be the landmark. Was it about 3 miles to the dead end on Pine Log Church Road? And then it was about, that loop was about 6 miles. It connects old 64. Pine Log connects to it on each end, about 6 miles. And that was something else we'd do, because this was through the church. We had the Pine Log Church with the Adopt a Highway. The youth group, along with some of the adults, would help pick up the trash on the road. Adopt a Highway, they called it, Pine Log Church Road. Well, that'd be Pine Log Road.
Pine Log Road.
Christmas carol.
Yeah, we did Christmas caroling too, with the church caroling around the community and old time stuff.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Small town Christmas carols. I can never get anyone to go caroling with me. We caroled up at the square a couple Christmases ago with my brother and his family. That was fun.
Like I say, we was always involved with the Farm Bureau in some way, with on the board or volunteering with the Farm Bureau, and I was on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board for a lot of years. And even I went off when I worked with them, but then I was back on the board between when I worked with them and when I wasn't. And that was a good outfit. A lot of wonderful folks I deal with too and met. Let's see here, what am I leaving out? Oh, it's hard to talk about a
whole life.
40 years or 50 years in just a few minutes.
Right? I know. Tell me about the Ha-Ha Man.
I worked, when I was working with Soil and Water, we put in a, what did we call that? A dry stack waste accumulator and an artificial wetland that we'd filter the wastewater from the dairy through to get the impurities out of it and what have you, clean up the water. And them boys over there, the milk is Lynn Waldo's dairy, and boys over there that worked over there was Arthur Moss, and David Anderson, and George Anderson was three of the ones that worked there. And Ed Anderson worked there for years. But they had a sister named Kathy, the Anderson boys did. And somehow or another she got to calling me the Ha-Ha Man. I don't know exactly how that started.
Because you were always cutting up?
I guess. And then over at Hardy's, I'd go through the drive-thru, and that girl that worked there for so many years said, there comes old Giggles.
Mr. Giggles.
There comes Mr. Giggles.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But Kathy, when I see her, she still calls me the Ha-Ha Man.
The Ha-Ha Man. That's great. Everybody loves to laugh.
There's not enough of it going on. It needs to get contagious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Laughter is the best medicine.
I'm about run out of anything to say. I need to tell some stuff to Dad. Dad was always into something funny. Him and my granddad was always picking out some kind of something to joke about. Yeah, this would be a memory. When I was growing up, we was members over here at Truett Church. And for years, Chester Jones was pastor. Chester was a big man then. And my dad was over there one cold day when Dad was over in the barber shop. We always had Howard Martin and Todd Phillips and Hodges. Bob Hodges was the barber. At to mention them boys, they'd give you a haircut. But they had a bathroom back in the back of the barber shop. One day Dad had went to the bathroom, and the door opened coming out into the barber shop. Well, Chester, being the comedian he was, he just rolled up against that door and sat down and thought he had my dad trapped in there.
Okay.
Well, Dad said, oh my goodness, I'm in here for the duration. But somehow or another it just happened to dawn on him that there was a empty cup sitting there, and he filled it with water and just doused it under that door. And he could tell when Chester rolled out of the way, and he got out of there right quick. And
That's great.
Chester had to walk home in the cold with it wet behind.
Oh no! Oh no! That's great.
Yeah, that's when it's just walking distance. I'm sure Dad had walked up there from the office. He had the office there in the That was a kind of a funny story. There's always pulling something on one another.
But that's where you get your humor from, is from Dad, huh?
Well, my granddad too, he's always pulling something, some kind of mischievous.
Yeah, I remember that twinkle in my grandfather's eye when he was about to pull something. You knew something was twinkling in there.
But I tinker with old machinery, old tractors, and farm implements and stuff like that. That's what I do kind of in the pastime. Seems like I've just gotten gathered up lately. I've got behind on my tinker.
Well, maybe you'll give us a little tour around your yard. I'd love to see some of this old equipment so you can tell me about it.
Well, a lot of it's just stuff that people, sort of wanted out of the way. And
Right, but I think it's
happy
great to
to
put
get
some
it.
flowers around it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what else can we think about to talk about right quick?
Let's see.
Tell what you call a family outing.
A family outing?
Going to the hayfield or the tobacco patch, is that what you're talking about?
How about the day we all went after church? I was on the rake, you was on the baler, and Jared's on
Oh
the
yeah,
truck.
what people talk about getting together as a family. Them boys was picking up hay and I was baling and Benita was raking.
They have the whole family on different machinery?
Well, the boys was just kind of muscling.
Right. We're doing the muscle work.
I'd get accused all the time of just riding around on the tractor, and I guess that's kind of what I did.
That's kind of what I did.
I must admit that I'd try to sneak off somewhere when he got so you couldn't do it with the tractor.
Yeah, that's a little hard. It was loud.
You got to tell it like it is. You can't
No sugarcoating it.
sugarcoat it.
That's right. That's right.
This is great. I had to talk about a lot of different things.
Well, hopefully it's bringing back some good memories for you today, and
Well, both
guarantee
of it
you
was good.
the viewers are going to love it because they probably know all the people that you know. Yeah, locally here in Clay County and Hayesville area mostly is where these have been recorded, most of them.
Yeah,
Although a couple went to Brasstown or out of town a little ways, but most of them are Hayesville.
Had a lot of good, most bulk of the experiences were good, I must say. Yeah. And like I say, it's an opportunity. It's wonderful to get to live in an area where you get to experience things like that and get to make a living off the land for the most part. I had a wonderful experience in school with a lot of good friends, and hard to mention all that, but some of them have gone on, but there's still a lot of them still here with us, and that was a lot of good.
What year did you graduate high school?
76,
76.
1976.
Yeah.
I've said this, I probably shouldn't say it, but I played football, I think, for 9 years. And I got in the band when I was a freshman. And now, looking back, I wished I'd have stayed in the band and left the football off.
Yeah.
Because I learned the trumpet pretty good just in that one season. And an instrument, and being able to play music would be something you'd carry with you right on.
Right.
Mostly what I got out of football was a lot of sore joints.
Yeah, you're not going to get out there and throw the ball much today,
Busted up
right?
knees and
Maybe
stuff like
with the
that.
grandkids. Throw the ball with the grandkids.
Ain't able to, man.
Aw. You could do a little underhand toss, maybe.
Because I got all busted up in football.
Darn it. Yeah,
But that's
that would
just-
be wonderful.
That's
Be
just
able to
something
carry-
to talk about.
My dad plays guitar and harmonica. My stepmother plays banjo. My brother plays guitar. My grandkids, my oldest grandson Jackson plays the violin. I think he's in his 3rd year. And the middle grandson Levi, he plays electric guitar and keyboards. And now the baby's about to turn 4. We don't know what his is going to be, but everybody loves music in that
Yeah, that's
family.
great.
Yeah,
That's
they
great.
love to sing and
That's some of the best memories we've got. A lot of weekends, Friday, Saturday night one, we'd go down to Keith and Katie's and we'd sing.
yeah,
Keith played the guitar
nothing better.
and we'd sing and just have the best time.
Yeah,
And a lot of
I think we should do that more often around here.
some of the
Have a
other
bonfire.
neighbors would come along and we'd sing with us. She is saying we eat a lot of popcorn. That was good. Keith and Katie could really make the popcorn. They
Yeah.
had this special thing they made it with. It was really good.
Nice. Good to know.
Yeah. Good bunch of neighbors. Good friends.
Well, I really, truly enjoyed enjoyed today, sitting here talking with you and listening to your stories, and your laughter is your laugh is pretty contagious. I love the laugh.
This time of year, when pine log, I'd go out and fix a lot of people's garden patches. And that's how I got acquainted with Leanna. She lived down there some, and we'd go up there and fix her a garden area. Should I tell that story about Ralph Miller? Anyway, Ralph Miller was a good old neighbor, and he's kind of a comedian, and a lot of people knew Ralph. But he had a field there, it's probably 3 acres, and he'd want me to come down there, say like this time of year, and plow it and hard it up so he could put corn out for. Lord, I don't know why Ralph grows corn.
For the deer, maybe, I don't know.
But anyway, it was one old hot day, and I'd been out there working several hours, and there was a spring right there along the road. Had a pipe fixed, and it just poured all the time, run out. And Ralph come over to where I was at with a quart jaw, and I said, he's come along to that spring there and brought me a drink of water. Good old Ralph. Well, I was hot and thirsty, and I just turned that up, just like it's water.
Because you thought it was.
And that burned me all the way to my toes. He brought me some homemade moonshine. It burned me all the way to my toes.
Yeah, big swig of some nice cold water, and
Wait.
no, it probably lit you up.
He got down, he was old then, and he got down in that plowed ground and just rolled laughing at me. We laughed about that for years.
Oh my gosh.
I said, yeah, I'm gonna test whatever kind of water I think you're bringing me from now on.
At least take a big whiff of it.
But he laughed it on me.
Oh no.
About Will and Bill and the coffee.
Yeah, we had some other boys that helped me a lot was Ronald Lovingood and Jason Dye, and they were living with their granny, Willa Bell, and Bill Whedon. And for some reason or other, I was down there visiting one evening, and Bill said, would you drink some coffee? And I said, I might drink a little coffee, Bill. It ain't too much trouble. And he fixed me my coffee, and we sat there visiting, fellowshipping. I'm not sure what all the meeting was about. I think just visiting. But anyway, Bill said, you're not drinking your coffee too much. Is there something wrong with it? And I said, well, Bill, it's all right, I reckon, but I just think that used to salty coffee.
Salty coffee.
And Willa Bell said, Bill, you've got the sugar and the salt mixed up, you rascal. And he'd laid the salt to that coffee.
You're not drinking your coffee. Is there something wrong with it? Oh, that's great.
We cut up about that for a lot of years.
Oh, that's awesome.
And another couple down there that was wonderful and I cherish was Virgil Dye. Virgil and Mary Dye. They was a wonderful couple there. Virgil was a hard worker. Years ago, he drove an old Maxidine Mack truck and hauled pallets for these boys down here at the feed mill. Well, he worked for Clay Officer hauling pallets, and he hauled feed too. But anyway, he'd get me to go with him in that old truck, and we had a lot of good times in that old truck, visiting and talking and telling tales, eating at cafes and stuff.
Charlie and Lenore.
Yeah, Charlie and Lenore Caldwell was wonderful. Charlie's still alive. He's in his 90s, I guess.
Tell them about her wearing the flower dress. Church.
Oh yeah, I'd get in trouble. I was bad to. Lenore and Joyce they'd bring a flower arrangement every Sunday to church, set it on below the pulpit, and I'd whisper. I'd get back there and whisper around. I'd say, "What about these women showing off their bloomers right here in church?"
They're bloomers. Oh, you rascal.
Yeah,
Sounds like a really good life.
This may not be
Living.
funny to many people, but anyway, Lenore and Charlie built them a new home, and they're very proud of it, which they should be. And it's a wonderful home. They built it back in this property that was real private and wonderful, beautiful. Well, I happened to go down there for something one time, and Lenore said, "Come up here on the seat, show you where we store our potatoes." And we got back around there, and I said, "Charlie, I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you this, but Lenore showed me her tater hole."
What was his response?
They had when they first bought that property, it had an old home that hadn't been looked about in 30 years. And it was just about to fall in. But anyway, they patched it up so they could live in it while they were building their home. Well, like I say, you could throw a cat through the wall almost. But they'd invite us down there. Big crowds of people would get in there in that little old house and sing and eat and fellowship, and that's some wonderful times.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And they had two, it's cold weather usually when we was doing it, and they had a fireplace, and I think they had an old wood heater over here, and they had just raging fires in each of them, and it's still, you'd freeze to death.
Still be cold.
But they got their house built, and they were, one year they growed a lot of sweet potatoes, and Charlie had them in that old house and had fires built in the fireplace and that old wood heater. Somehow or another that thing got on fire and it burnt that house up and their taters and everything.
Oh.
But this was after they'd got their home built.
Right, thankfully, but
It
wow.
was a shame that
Darn it.
I said, "Charlie, you was really wanting to cure them potatoes, wasn't you?"
Oh, shoot. You never let him live it down, did you? Darn it.
I wasn't too rough on him, but that was a shame.
Yeah, darn it.
We had some good times in that old house. That was where Minnie was raised. Minnie Owens she is a Green. That was the Green home place. There's several of them.
I think there was a Minnie Owens just mentioned in Pam Miller's story.
I'm sure it was. Minnie was Betty and David was Minnie's children. And they're about 14 years apart, Betty and David. But now Arnold and Minnie, they wasn't no better than them. They lived back in the end of the road on a real pretty little farm. And private. And Minnie was special. Minnie somehow or another got the job of looking after a lot of the older ones. And Betty, her daughter's done the same thing. She's looked after, I don't know how many different people when they get so they wasn't able to look after the state. Special.
That takes a real good heart.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah.
Special folks. I can tell about Arnold and his dog. We raised 2 or 3 groups of Australian Shepherd puppies. We had a dandy little Australian Shepherd named Cookie was her name, and we'd raised 2 or 3 litters of puppies with her. And Arnold got one of those pups, and that little pup, he had time, and that dog would do anything he wanted. That's the smartest dog I ever seen.
He had the time to train it. Yeah.
Arnold would get an armload of wood, and that dog would grab a stick in its mouth and go to the house with that wood. Stuff like that. He's an amazing dog.
That's cool.
Yeah. Arnold was a special fellow. He'd butcher. He'd do a lot of the butchering hogs for people. Had a good little place fixed there, and they'd scald that hog and scrape it and raise it up and cut it up and that kind of thing. But I mean, them was, butcher them for the meat.
Sure.
Yeah. I just a little old boy, I remember. They said, "Bill, we're going to let you drive today." Oh boy, I was all for it. I thought we was going to drive the tractor or something. Well, they said, go down there below that shed there and get you what you're going to drive. I got down there and there's no wheelbarrow.
Right?
Well, when this is good to end the story on, I guess. But when there's gutting the hog, I got to haul the guts off.
Oh, wow. Nice.
But they thought that was funny, them boys.
Sure.
Here's one that's ended on. Tell about Smiley and the wheelbarrow.
Smiley Mull. Kenneth Mull. He's a good old buddy of mine. We worked down there at Ledsings one summer. And what our job was right where the Ledsing plant was, is he owned that acreage around it, and there's an old house or two on the farm there, I guess. They grew trees, Christmas trees on that farm. Well, we was cleaning, they'd put a lot of old metal in them old homes, and it's about to fall in. And we was moving that metal out there, and we was moving it out with a wheelbarrow, load below. Well, one day, me and Smiley was there on the old porch and brought it down, it's leaning. Well, old Smiley jumped in the wheelbarrow, and he said, take me for a ride. So I was pushing the wheelbarrow, and got tickled, and I wrecked the wheelbarrow, and I dumped poor old Smiley out off that porch into a big multi-flower rose patch.
Ow! Oh, you're kidding. Oh, no.
And I got so tickled, I let the wheelbarrow fall on him.
Now,
Old Smiley was down in there, oh. And he said it wouldn't have been so bad if you hadn't let the wheelbarrow fall on me. But we still, when we get with Smiley, we'll talk about the wheelbarrow ride.
Oh, what a great day. What a nice afternoon sitting here and listening to your stories, Bill. I thank you so much. I know the viewers are going to appreciate it. Yeah. Wanted to let y'all know that we're closing up this one-on-one with Clay County History series at the end of April. And I think I have the April 19th is still open if anyone wants to email me or call me and set up a time that's good for you on that Friday for our last one. We will be doing Rob Tigers is still coming and Fannie Watson. And then I have one more opening. So I want to thank you for keeping with us and watching with us all this winter. And I think we're over a dozen now. And thank all of our participants for sharing their stories and stuff. Make sure you look for us on all your social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, or should I say X, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. And of course our website is clayhistoryartsnc.org. And again, my email is CCHAC Hayesville@outlook.com. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next one.